Do you want a women's T-shirt? Can you tell me how I can encrypt my SIP calls? Z-phone? Is there any other way besides Z-phone? Okay, here's the shirt. Aw, who said aw? Why? You don't get any no, he's got a woman. He's like the only one in the room. Okay. All right, has anybody here ever injected audio into a SIP call? Because I hear that all the time on my VoIP phone. I mean, I know it's you guys. Nobody will admit to it? Okay, is anybody willing to lie and say they did for one of these super cool screwdriver kits? All right, come here. I'm not going to throw it because I've been banned from throwing shit off stage because of all the injuries and liability insurance and crap. All right, that's good. Here, I'll throw it from here. All right, cool. Okay. Is anybody here willing to admit they don't know anything about network security assessment? All right, that's the first hand. Come here. It's a free book. More luggage. Okay, cool. All right, these guys are going to take over, I think. Are you ready? They're not ready. You guys ready? Okay. I'll leave it to them to explain what the hell they're doing. All right, good luck.
Thank you. Seems to work. Okay, so I was too fast. So this will be a talk on some practical experience we gathered doing fuzzing in the SIP space. That will be the first part of the talk, while the second will be more detailed on how the fuzzing tool that we're reading today works, in fact. So which are the techniques, kind of advanced techniques that we have been using to get these results. So there'll be one phase which I'm going to be very fast on SIP and some of the attacks that you can do in SIP, which are not as much known, while second B will more kind of addressing the fuzzing. So this is joint work with, well, the outline is like follows. So there will be two demonstrations. First demo will show universal attack against SIP, which you can do on any wire, actually on any SIP network, and we can do toll fraud. And the second will be a demo on the fuzzing tool itself. So there will be a section on exploits and vulnerabilities that we have discovered with KIF. It's the first part. Second, how KIF is really implemented. About us, so that's a joint work. Humberto Abdelnur, who is the main developer of KIF, is a PhD student working on automatic techniques for machine learning techniques for fuzzing. Myself, so I'm Radu State. I'm a senior researcher with INRIA in Nancy. This is a French city in eastern part of France. You see it's a kind of red square on the right side of the map. And also Olivier Festo, who is a team leader, mainly team leader. Well, voice over IP, basic idea in voice over IP, you use IP technology to transport your voice traffic and signaling. So somehow you are going to connect to the internet. You also have to connect to the PSTN, so to the telecommunication networks. And in most cases, most security architecture will have a dedicated VLAN for your all voice over IP equipment, which is a kind of blue cloud over there. You have some core user and configuration servers, whatever has to do with management, and then you will have to take all the security in depth to protect it from what kind of malicious traffic coming from the internet. And then you have some dedicated voice equipment like a client and all the servers which are used by the client to establish the calls. Now, if you look at the threats that you have in voice over IP, there is a body which is called VoIPSA, which define make a taxonomy of possible threats. You have social threats, something, if you make analogy with phishing, it's called a vishing. You do exactly what you do in phishing, but you do it with voice over IP, so you use call ID spoofing, you try to make calls, try to reroute calls to your PBX and try to intercept and hijack calls. You can do remote eavesdropping, very easy, IP technology, we know how to do it, so basically we just capture the voice traffic. Denial of service, major problem. Traditionally has been thought like sending, flooding, either at the network level or at the SIP level, a lot of messages and trying to kind of take down a service. And then you have also everything that has to do with toll fraud, like service abuse, using someone else's infrastructure to make reroute calls. There is a famous case in the US, I don't know if you're aware, with the PINA case, where kind of think he broke into 7 routers from 7 main voice over IP kind of companies, and then here he wrote his own clients to that networks. So he made a lot of money, and he kind of operated for 6 months until being caught, so there's still a lot of work to be done. And everything that had to do with threats which are not related to, I would say, attacks or malicious activities. So we started this work, and one of the things that we discovered that these threats are not that relevant, that in reality we see some other threats. We can show you how you can not just eavesdrop a communication, but you can put a whole location, a remote location, and you can eavesdrop what's going to be talked in a specific room. We can show you how you can do toll fraud, and typically toll fraud has been always thought like injecting specific low-level messages, like kind of signaling on the wire, and we can show you how you can do it very easily, just with SIP. And we can also show you how you can actually not take advantage of the voice over IP network from the network layer, but the other way around. How you can own an internal network using voice over IP. So this is kind of different threat model than the one that you have actually is known in the VoIP technology. And we'll also show you a universal toll fraud which you can do on any SIP network. That's a vulnerability which is related to SIP itself, in the authentication mechanism, and that we have discovered actually more or less by kind of while we're doing some fuzzing process. So the first basic vulnerability, and that we discovered in 2007, it's related to a phone, Thompson phone, and you just send a simple empty invite message, nothing in it, and the phone crashes. So you send one message and you crash a phone. And we were amazed to see that in 2007, developers don't even address a basic input filtering thing, to see that's an argument over there. And we kind of discovered this while we were watching the movie Die Hard 4. And there is I don't know how many of you have seen the movie. There's a nice scene over there when you have the message, what happens to you when you dial 911 and nobody answers. That's kind of thing that you can do with kind of one packet denial of service. You crash the device itself. We have seen it about 7-8 years ago in the IP world, where you could crash a Windows with a specific ICMP, and we are kind of reobserving the same errors now at the SIP level. Mean that in 10 years, developers didn't really learn that many. Second type of vulnerability, don't address one phone, but address the server. Asterisk, it's a very popular open source kind of works on Linux, PST, PBX. So it's well deployed. Our lab itself using Asterisk, it's using Asterisk. And one nice vulnerability that we have discovered in Asterisk was parsing error in the STP field. So there is an STP, there's a field in SIP where you can actually negotiate the data communication, actually the voice communication. So we say to the other device, I'm going to use that particular RTP address. And in Asterisk, normally this IP address, it's not a laser device, I don't have a screen itself here, but normally you send only one IP address in the field. What happens if you send 2 IP addresses, and the one is the wrong one? I'm going to use it later. Well, if you send the wrong IP address over here, then Asterisk crashed. So you send one packet, and you could take down the whole voice over IP network of one specific enterprise. And you could do it with UDP spoofing. So there were no traces whatever, and you could just kill the whole voice over IP infrastructure. So these are really bad, I would say, vulnerabilities if you think that critical communication sometimes, I mean, if we go for next generation networks and voice over IP carried over IP networks, then with one simple packet, you could kill all the communication going on. Other type of vulnerabilities, it's concerning that we discovered on a Grandstream phone, very nice video phone, which could also voice over IP. And here you see that the red message. And I put it in red because that's a message which was sent to the device in an unexpected state. So the SIP is kind of finished state machine, there is a protocol, and the device expected each time on some specific messages. Well, if you do some what we call stateful fuzzing, basically when you fuzz the protocol and you try to keep state with the device, when you start to inject valid messages, so syntactically valid messages, but which are not expected at that time moment by the state machine of the device, then very nasty things can happen. And in this case, the device actually hung up. I mean, there was no noise, no ringing, no, not ever. But on the other side, we could hear whatever was spoken in the remote location. So it was really remote eavesdropping of a particular location. We tested it with this device. There might be other devices out there who might have kind of same vulnerabilities. So whenever we have a voice over IP